This is the booksbybethel.com's Authors Corner podcast, where we chat with interesting authors, bring you insights, and marketing tips. Booksbybethel.com is an author's directory featuring family-friendly writings of Bahamians and West Indians. Here's your host, author, and publisher, Teri Bethel.
Well, our guest today is Miss Anna Lewis from the beautiful island of Eleuthera. You're from James, well, you reside in Jamestown, but you're originally from Nassau. You're a Nassau girl like me. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm originally from Nassau, but I grew up in Andros.
Andros, the land of the Crab Fest, the land of the great farming land.
Yes.
So how did you get from Andros to Eleuthera?
Well, I met my husband in Nassau. When I moved from Andros after graduating high school, I moved back to Nassau for work. And I met my husband there. That was, I think, in 2000. And not long thereafter, we relocated to Eleuthera. He was from Eleuthera, Jamestown originally, but we relocated back to Eleuthera. And I've been here ever since. I like to say he brought me here and he never sent me back.
Oh, that's a good thing. Well, Anna Lewis is the author of 2 books. And the one that we're going to talk about today is Thoughts of a Thinker, Life of Poetry. I had the opportunity of reading some of your book when you participated in the Eleuthera Drive. And I was impressed. We have a lot of writers and a lot of good writers in the Bahamas, but it takes courage and character to be as transparent as you were and are in your book. And that surely needs to be celebrated. And I love your spirit. I love your boldness in sharing, because you do what a lot of people don't do, and that's going on social media and sharing your book. So you're almost you're fearless when it comes to the camera, because you go there and you just speak out those poems like it's medicine for the hearers. You don't take it for granted. And I am sure that is touching. Those poems are touching so many lives. And so I want to ask you, how did your writing start? Where did this come from? Were you always a writer as a child, or was this something that developed because you went through a pressing period?
Well, thinking back, and I had to be reminded of this, I think it was in 2019, 2020. But thinking back, I always had, the seed had already been planted from I was a child. It's just that it needed to be developed. And I'm guessing the development came through the actual struggles and trials that I received, that I went through during my childhood and growing up. Writing for me was always a passion back in school. However, due to the many struggles and home situations, and because I grew up in an abusive home, it's kind of cost me the trauma kind of cost me to, should I say, card off some stuff, block out some stuff, some good and bad stuff mostly, but also some good stuff, one being my writing. And I actually went through a phase of trying to figure out who I am, who I should be, my purpose in life. I began to compare myself to others. I was in that self-finding kind of mission. And one day I just sat on my bed, broken as ever. And I was like, Lord, why am I here? Why am I alive? I need to find something uniquely me. I participate in church, I sing, I am community minded. I take part in the community, anything that's needed. But anyone can do that. I just needed to find something. I'm like, God, help me to find something uniquely me. And not long after, he reminded me of my writing. He actually used one of my teachers. She was an English teacher of mine. And just all of a sudden, she popped up in my chat and she sent me something, I think one of my writing pieces. And she was like, are you still writing? And I'm like, writing? And she's like, yeah, you used to write back in school. You forgot? And I'm like, okay, so what did I write? And I think she sent me something and I was blown away. And I still pushed it aside. And not very long after that, it's like everything that I saw, I would sit on the beach, the waves would be crashing against the sand. That would give me inspiration. I would literally feel the lyrics, the words, and the rhythmic flow come into my mind, and I would just be led to write. Initially, when I started to write, it was not to say for a book, to say, well, okay, I'm going to be an author, I'm going to publish this and make this known to the world. I would just write as an outlet, and it felt good. And I would just pour into that. I would just write, and I would just write anything. The birds flying gave me inspiration. Cars passing gave me inspiration. Children playing gave me inspiration. So I believe the Lord just opened up that gateway, and he allowed my teacher, my former teacher, to remind me of what was already in me to begin my writing phase.
Beautiful. Yes. So many of us poets, that's how we began expressing ourselves too, from things that we had experienced. I know for me, my pen and paper became my best friend. I didn't know I didn't know who to trust other than the pen and paper, other than God, of course,
Right.
of course.
Right.
But it was a gift that he had given that, well, I didn't take it as a gift initially, but I recognize it now as a gift, the ability to write and express yourself. And in doing that, it is an avenue in which you bless others by sharing your story, and you also become blessed by knowing that you have poured into somebody's life that has caused a change, and then in turn, of course, being appreciated. I see that your topics are diverse, and I love it because you don't shy back about speaking to certain situations, and you don't shy away also from embracing our culture, the essence of island life. And I think we are losing some of that, especially with television and other cultures that are seem so loud. They might not be as strong as ours, but they're so loud, and
Yes.
they're captivating the attention of our young people. But you are taking hold of some parts of our culture through your stories, and hopefully they will be emblazoned on the hearts of our young people, so they would never forget what it is to go fishing. They would
Exactly.
never forget, just the basic things, that some of these basic things that you're talking about in your poem. And by the way, Anna Lewis's poems are available in Eleuthero. Can you say where else your poems are available, Mrs. Lewis?
My poems are available at this time on Amazon.
Right.
And by contacting me, of course, my number is online, like I said, at Amazon, and I'm about to have some of my books placed in some of the bookstores in Nassau, so that's to be announced.
Right.
I'm just waiting on some other stuff to fall into place, and I would go ahead and do that.
Well, I want to say too that Anna Lewis is if you want to sample her writings, you can also do that on booksbybethel.com, because
Yes.
she has a free sampling there for you to certainly be blessed and enjoy. So that's a good thing. So what is your desire for your books? What do you want? And I say books because I know you have Thoughts of a Thinker, but there's another one coming out soon to be released.
Yes.
So you can give us a sneak preview of that. What is the name of that book?
Okay, the name of that book that I have that has already been published, is just that I need to tie up some other stuff with that. The name of that is called Upfront and Personal. So that is even more transparent, in my opinion, on a lot of stuff that people hate to talk about, they're afraid to speak about. But it is my hope that when persons read my book, they know that they're not alone. They know that the struggles that they're faced with, you're not the first. There's a phrase that persons often say, you're not the first and you're not going to be the last. So it is my hope that when persons read my book, they realize that there is hope if I can get through, if other persons that I've encountered in life, because the stories are not all my story. It is the stories of others that I've encountered, I've spoken to, I've encouraged along the way. So I am like an outlet, the voice for those that are afraid to speak, those that cannot speak because of fear of repercussions or other stuff.
Yes.
So I am that voice. I stand in the way of that voice for those that are afraid to speak. And I just want others to know that they are not alone. They can get through. If I got through, if others got through it, they can get through with God. They have to put God first. They have to invite him into their situation. And with him, you can get through anything. There's nothing too hard for God to help you get out of.
That's right. That's right. As a publisher, Mrs. Lewis, I've had the opportunity to publish several books from people who have gone through various levels of domestic violence, outright abuse. They've survived. That's a good thing. They have survived and they have lived to tell their stories. And not only have they lived, they're not just telling their stories to have something to say, but it's almost as though they're turning around and saying, let me give you a hand up out of that mire, that pain, that rough spot, that darkness that you're into. You know, you seem to be sweltering in. You know, it's a lonely place to be when you're riding through darkness and a hellish life.
Yes.
And if they can pick up a book that speaks to them, whether through poetry or through testimony or how to, it just makes for a brighter opportunity to share the good news that you do not have to stay stuck. Let me help you get unstuck.
That's
you know? So that to me, that speaks volumes to me, because like I say, well, first of all, as my husband and I were youth ministers for a number of years, so we know, as well as marriage ministers, so we know what it is to what people are going through behind closed doors. We know what it looks like for people to actually on social media, they are saying, oh yes, this is my better half, this is my mom, this is my da-da-da, and they go on and they got the pictures and they got the sing song, but you know that you just spoke to them. You know that you just helped them to dry the tears. So it's almost like a false persona, because they don't know.
It's a mask.
Yes, and they just don't know how to get through. And though you're trying to help them, I believe that books such as yours, Thoughts of a Thinker, people can sit down in the quietness of their home or on their lunch break, and they can read it and say, she gets it. She was there. she's experienced this, or she's speaking
Yes.
about somebody else who has experienced this. And I believe that if I apply some of these principles, this is really
Yes.
showing me my way out,
Yes.
because there is hope. There is
There is
help.
hope.
And I just want to say, even, if you're watching this and you're struggling and you're going through issues, there is hope. You don't have to be alone in this. There is hope. There is a way out. And that everybody has that opportunity to just reach up and take the hand of God to bring you through whatever situation you're going through. So, Miss Lewis,
Yes.
I have some questions I want to ask you about your writing.
Okay, sure.
And so, you've already said how long you've been writing from you were a child. Yeah, that's great. But when that was after you were married that you decided to call yourself a writer, or did you see yourself as a writer long before you penned your first book?
That's the thing. I never imagined me. I call myself a barefoot island gal from Andros, growing up running around in the streets, and I never imagined that I would be sitting here today as an author of 2 books, and I bless God. I give him all the glory for that. However, no, I never consider myself a writer. Sometimes I would usually, once I've written something, I go back and I read it again. I'm like, Anna, did you write that? You wrote that?
Yeah.
And that's how God blows my mind for every time. I like to, oftentimes I tell people a lot of my writing is God inspired as well. I would have gone through a lot of the stuff other persons, but a lot of the stuff in there, most of the stuff I would say in there are God inspired.
Yeah.
And he gives me the know-how.
Right. Yes, I could relate to that. I certainly could relate to that. In fact, some words when I'm writing, I have to go back and look them up because I've never heard them before. And I said, really?
Exactly. Yes.
That fits perfectly. Where
Yes.
did that come from?
Yes.
So what is the hardest part of writing your book? What do you consider the most difficult part?
Okay. I cannot say that there is a difficult part other than possibly not having it printed here. I'm guessing maybe the financial part of it, but to say writing my book, because it is God inspired and I write once he leads me to write.
I see.
If I don't write, if something isn't coming to mind, I leave it.
Okay.
Sometimes I would pick up my book, I would pick up my phone, because a lot of my writing is done on my phone. Persons, they find that so fascinating that I actually wrote a whole book in my phone.
Right.
I had it saved in a notebook in my phone, but I wouldn't consider any part of my writing difficult. With my writing, I find transparency to be freeing.
Okay.
I find the transparency which was God given, because I never thought I can be free as I am to write and to speak as I do. I find it to be freeing, and I believe once I had asked God to help me to identify my purpose, he also planted that spirit of boldness within me, even though I'm still sort of shy before the camera. Persons don't know that. However, he still has graced me with the boldness to be able to speak, because there are so many people out there that needs help, or that needs to know, or that needs knowledge of what I have to say, based on his download into my life and based on his download into my book. So I wouldn't say anything that, maybe some persons might say transparency can be hard in a way, but for me, it was freeing. So I would say
Wonderful.
the transparency part was freeing to me, and it helped me because me growing up in an abusive home and all of the stuff that I have encountered in life, it allowed me to express myself boldly. And it was just freeing. I would use that word.
Okay.
Transparency for me is freeing.
Okay. So, how have your family members read any of your poems? And what are their thoughts on it?
Yes, they have read it, and everyone is like, wow, they're very proud of what I have done. They're very proud of the stuff that I've said. I'm sure of my mother. I dedicated my first book, Thoughts of a Thinker, to my mother because of the type of person she wasn't a godly example within my life, though the abuse in my home actually happened with her because my father was verbally and physically abusive to my mother. She was still a very strong woman, grounded in Christian principles. And because she helped me and she taught me and showed me the right direction to go, she encouraged me to go to church. She encouraged me to go to Sunday school. She encouraged me to be all that I could be in life. I think she would have been my biggest supporter. She was such a wonderful person, and that is why I dedicate my book to her. But all of my family members are so very proud of what I have done, and they are brought to tears every time they read the book.
I would imagine so. When I first started writing, also, my family didn't believe. They were like, "You sure you wrote this?" I wasn't a good student. But it's amazing that when you just give it all to God, how He transforms, and they are so proud now. Proud of, well, I don't know if I'm proud of them. They are so pleased with where I've come in
Yes.
life. And my mother often says, "It's oh, I can't believe this to say. Oh my goodness, you have come so far." Yes, thank God for Jesus.
That's it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You know, we don't often celebrate each other as authors, but are there any authors that you've come across? And this is not to put you on the spot, I'm not asking you to endorse me, but are there any authors that you come across that you really love their work? And you would say that they have been of any sort of inspiration to you growing up or even now?
Okay. I love my Bahamian authors. One particularly in the person of yourself. I've read some of your work, and yes, I, I really, it's been inspired. I've been inspired by your work and the help that you give to up and coming authors as myself, new authors as myself, and others all over the Bahamas and the Caribbean. That is very, very impressive, and I'm inspired by the work you do. Also, the publisher that assisted me with publishing my first two books, that would be Tanya Monroe. She was very instrumental in helping me and sort of giving me the ideas and in different directions. Though I knew what I wanted to say and how I wanted to take it. She sort of gave me added push to go into the direction, go deeper, I should say, into different topics and different areas. So some of my poems that I even wrote, it wasn't as long as it was. I sort of cut it short, and she kind of helped me to go deeper into what I was writing. Also, though not a Bahamian, but a well-known author, and that would be Maya Angelou, the late Maya Angelou. I've read so much of her work, and she was just bold in what she believed, and being a woman of color, and all of that. That really me being a lady and a woman of color, she being a woman of color, that was also a great push and what helped me to be as bold as I am in speaking up against different things. When my book, I think in my second book, there's a piece that's called I Can't Breathe. And it was based on the situation the world knows about George Floyd, where, he was senselessly killed. And I write boldly about that. And so stuff like that, persons like yourself and my publisher, Tanya Monroe, and of course, Maya Angelou, it helped me to be bold and be able to speak freely and boldly without fear of, I guess, persons backlash and all of that. Speak boldly about who I am, what I want to bring across, and the fact that someone can be helped by this. So
Yes.
I bless God for people like yourself and those others.
Well, thank you so kindly for those kind words. Now I got to ask you, do
Sure.
you ever celebrate after you've completed a book? And how do you do it? Or do you just relax and say, oh God, thank you?
The thing about it is I'm usually just so humbled by the fact that God has used me. He has gifted me with such a gift and a talent to do this and to be able to speak into others. Most of the times after I'm done, I just sit there and I just smile from ear to ear and just like, thank you, Lord. That's all I do for the entire day. I think I'm just like, thank you, Lord. Just thank you. I may shed a tear here and there, just sing songs to just thank the Lord. No big celebration, just a feeling of gratitude.
When you do write, after I know you've done you've written your paperback books, but when you read, what is your reading preference? Do you like to read ebooks or because you write on the phone, so it's so easy for you to use that device to read books as well. Do you prefer reading that way, or do you prefer to pick up a paperback and feel the papers? That so many people say, I love the smell. I love to smell a book. As an author, what is your preference?
I love to read the book itself. I love to feel the book, read and flip the pages. And if I want to go back, I mark something and I highlight and all of that. It's just being in the moment of having that piece of paper in front of me, that book in front of me. And, I always refer back to Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision, write. Paper, pen, write. And I look at the vision of the authors that is on the book that is coming across to me, and I just take it up and I run with it. Whatever it is that is in the book that I'm inspired by, I highlight it, I take it up, run with it. So my preference would be the paperback, though I go into the ebook. I have my Kindle on my phone, on my tablet. I go into that at times. I find that I'm drawn more to books.
Yes. Who do you think is your biggest fan? Who do you take your books to, or your writings to, after you've written them and you want to say fact checked, or does this come across right? Who do you bounce your poems off?
Okay, the first person that hears anything that I write would be my husband. As soon as I'm done writing it, the first person I say, come, listen, I just wrote this. What do you think?
Yes.
And he's biased, so he's always gonna say, baby, it's good, it's nice, it's fine.
Yeah.
And then I also go to I have a friend, my sister in Christ, Christy Cadet. She always she's one person that I always send my work to after my husband. She would be the second person I send my stuff to. Then I have a cousin. So I have very close friends that I would do, because usually when I write, I would do a voice note or I would do a recording I just picked that up. I don't know why. After my first book, the Lord told me to also record the reason that I record, he told me that not everyone, and it is true, not everyone can read, not everyone likes to read, and not everyone will read. So my work can also get to those that will not pick up my book, but will rather listen to my audio.
Yes.
So in a lot of cases, I record a lot of my pieces, and you would see them on Facebook, or you would see, I would share them to different groups. So I record a lot of my pieces, and in that avenue, I would send them to persons that I wish to share them with.
Yes, yes. I think also as writers, we always it's good to have that support group. I also share with my husband, and he has a good laugh sometimes, especially with my adventure stories. He just tickled pink. But I think too, as authors, that we have to send our work to those with a critical eye, like you said, with your publisher, because you don't just want to surround yourself with yes people who mean you well and don't want to hurt your feelings. Because
that's it.
You know, you want to make sure that when you're sending things out, and this is for new authors, when you're sending things out, you want to ensure that it is sharp, it is well written. You know, if you need to correct some things, correct it before you send it out, because not everybody reading your poem is going to say, oh, what a wonderful job, especially if you get on, you start publishing your stuff. People are going to say, oh, did she realize that she has 3 typos on this page? Didn't she know that favorite isn't spelled that way? You know, so there are people out there who will really harshly critique you. And so while it's good to have mommy and hubby and your children and extended family, you need to have an inner circle also of people who are not afraid to speak the truth to you in love, not to be brutal, but to be honest, you know. And I think that's a refining, that's refining. Anyway, we are really coming down to the end of our interview, and this has been such fun, so enlightening, and you are an awesome author, and I celebrate you today, and I hope that readers will get a copy of your book. Y'all just hook up with Mrs. Anna Lewis. She will let you know how to get a copy of your book. She has no problem of putting it in the mail or putting it on the mail boat.
Not a problem.
It is a thick book, and it is a most enjoyable book to read. So bless you for watching this video today. Bless you, Ms. Lewis, for being here on this interview and enlightening us with your journey. And we hope to have you back when you produce your second book. And is there anything you have 1 minute? You can close out with whatever you'd like to say further about your book.
Okay. Once again, thank you so much for inviting me into your world. And I'm just grateful for this opportunity to have this interview done by you. And for those who's interested in purchasing my book, they can go, as I said, once again, on Amazon. They can contact me, the author. They can also go on Books by Bethel. You can go through Mrs. Bethel to obtain that copy. And also, I can put it on the mailboat. I can put it on the plane anywhere in the Bahamas. If you wish to purchase my book, you can just contact me. I'm easy to find, not hard at all, and we can work it out. So that's no problem. Thank you once again, and God bless you. I pray that my book is a blessing to each of you, and I pray that you are freed by whatever it is that you encounter.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you again, ladies, gentlemen, for tuning in to this interview. And I just say be blessed, and join us in the next interview.